conditional form in a relationship. So we're trying to do something like this. Try to find y as a function of x1, x2, xk. The first method that we've looked at is that of linear regression. Which tries to find a what kind of relationship? Linear relationship. What's the first hint that linear regression is something that can be used to find such a functional relationship? Looking at correlations. If you look at correlations, if you look at scatter plots, that's your first hint. That is going to tell you that if a linear relationship exists or it does not between a set of independent variables and the final dependent variable. If you find that correlations exist and correlations are stronger, which is why we said that if correlations are greater than 0.5, typically, you feel that a linear relationship might be useful. And in that respect, you use something called linear regression to build your concepts. So inside a linear regression, what you fundamentally plot, what we've discussed up to this point, is fitting lines. Fit a line. Now, once you know that you are using an approach that is going to fit a line towards any relationship, y has two choices. It can either be discrete or continuous. For us to use linear regression, what do you think it should be? One of you is on unmute.
పడుకొని 10 నిమిషాలు ఇంకా లేట్ గా తిన్నాడు కదా అదిగో కదులుతున్నా.
Okay. Now y has two choices. Y is what? Y is your target column. That's the column that you're hoping to find the answer for. And you're trying to find that answer out based on all the other columns that you have in your data set, all the other attributes, features, columns, whatever you might want to call them. So your y can either be discrete or continuous. If you're using a line to fit the data, what do you think your y should be, discrete or continuous?
Continuous, right?
Continuous. Yes.
Continuous.
Why discrete? A line is basically a continuous distribution, right? If you think that a certain y and a certain x, their relationship looks like a line, in that case you think that your y is basically a continuous. If you're predicting something like this, then y can have any set of values in any given range, right? In this range of x1 to x2, it's in a range of values for y. All values between it are actually possible. So when your y is continuous, when your target column is continuous, a linear regression based approach might work out for you. What else do you need? You also need some of your independent variables to have decent correlations with your y column. Isn't that correct? Because that decent level of correlation will be allowing you to be confident that when you fit a line, you're going to be able to map the relationship to an extent, because the scatter moving like a line is what is going to allow for higher values of correlations, and that is what we're hoping to find in the data. So we're trying to make our data set, we're trying to identify correlations. Once we found out that there are correlations, we're going to try and fit a line. In that process, we come across the step of estimation.
Rahul, I had a question. If
Yes.
we said that y should be a continuous variable, but for example, if I have a scenario where females are paid less than males, then this relationship is not, it'll give a uniform distribution for females, right?
No. If you're trying to predict whether females are being paid lesser than males or not, what's the variable that you'll use to predict such a thing?
Gender? No. I mean distribution.
No, not the independent variables. What kind of variable will you use to store this data? You're either going to store income levels of people and study it, right?
Yeah.
So
That
you
will
will
be
have income as a column. So your
Yeah.
target column in that case then is a continuous column.
okay. Yeah.
Even though you're trying to analyze something which says that a certain gender group is given preference in salary, but this column that you mathematically analyze to try and prove that hypothesis is a continuous one. So you'll be able to build a linear model over it. If such a relationship exists in the data. That is something that we check with correlations. If you find that all your independent variables, none of them are correlated with your dependent variable, then there's no point trying. There's no point trying to build a linear regression model on that data set. Because if a linear relationship cannot be identified with correlation, a line will never be able to fit that relationship well. You'll then have to think of non-linear functions that can plot the data. So if you're getting data like this, quite clearly you need a function that is able to map this relationship. So you need a nonlinear function that fits this relationship. A simple line is not going to be a good fit for this. You get my point?
But Rahul, we can fit the simple line, but that won't be like a right predictor.
Yes, we can fit it. It's not that mathematically we'll not be able to create a line that sort of minimizes the error. But even after getting the best error, even if that error is too high, then it's not good enough for you, right?
Yeah, correct.
You can get a line, but that lowest error might not be good enough for you. Okay. So once you've identified correlations, the next step that you go to, if you've seen that there are good correlation numbers that are encouraging, then you go to the next step, which is that of estimation. Estimation has two benefits, as we saw right now. What we estimate is the coefficient, and what we get out of it is we get the best fit line, and we get a mathematical functional form that can help with prescriptive insight. And that mathematical, for that equation that you get, one of those applications is elasticity. Elasticity, one such application. But the moment you are able to create a functional form, exactly define a functional form, that helps you generate
Hello. Hi Rahul, your voice is not audible.
Yeah, I think we lost you there for almost 30 seconds there.
Yep.
I think there is some network issue. Yeah.
He has left the meeting.
Hey, you guys can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I got disconnected actually. Let me just share my screen. I've lost a few pages though. All right. So the idea is that we are able to generate prescriptive insights with this. So typically, let's say we are able to write equations like income is some 10,000 or 1,000 plus 60 into age plus 45 into work experience plus some error. That's the nature of the relationship. Now you've got some, equation that you're able to write with this. The moment I am able to know that this is the equation that defines my relationship, as long as the error is acceptable, it must be making some mistake. It must be making some error. So the minimum sum of squares that it has gotten to, as long as that is acceptable, we are able to know exactly how age impacts income, how work experience impacts income. So we are able to exactly get the mathematical functional form that that we've modeled with our model. Unfortunately, when we go over to machine learning, this part becomes tricky there. So we don't get an equation in machine learning algorithms. You will see that they're very good predictors, but that's why they're not very good when it comes to prescriptive insights, because they don't give you a functional form. The functional forms are so complex that you can't actually use it in any way. But here, because we are defining the functional form, we are basically assuming a functional form to begin with. So we are saying that we looked at the data, we saw that the correlations were high. There were 5 variables. We felt that, those 5 variables in some way linearly are impacting the target variable. So I'm going to create an equation like, in this case, I've created with 2 variables. I felt that, age and work experience are useful. So I've created a model. I've hypothesized a model. I would have written that y is equal to some beta naught plus beta 1 into age plus beta 2 into work experience plus error. I would have first hypothesized that this, I believe, is the functional form. And now I'm going to allow the model to iteratively check whether this is a good fit for my data or not, and give me the model that has the least sum of squares of error. That model which came to me was this model. This is the model that I got as a result of that. 1000 was my beta naught, age was 60, beta 1 was 60, beta 2 was 45. Now this is the model that we got out of it. Now, as long as you're working with statistical algorithms, this is how the process goes. You first hypothesize a functional form or a functional relationship. You then check it against available data to see if the functional relation that you have hypothesized, that this is how age and work experience are related to income, whether that is a functional form that works for us or not, it has decent error or not, you then check it. So this is how any statistical algorithm goes. All statistical algorithms work like this. In a machine learning algorithm, there's nothing that you have to do about a functional form. You just pass age, work experience, and income to the model, and the model itself figures out what kind of relationship it wants to map between these 3 features. So there you don't have to assume. So there's no initial assumption that you have to make that this is the hypothesized functional form. I want you to check against it. That is not how a machine learning algorithm works. When we get there, we'll realize it even better, that machine learning algorithms make your job almost very close to zero. In feature engineering, there's still a lot that you can do to improve your models. But as far as building the model is concerned, As far as statistical algorithms go, you've got to decide what the functional relationship is, you got to hypothesize it, and then allow a model to check whether your hypothesis is making sense or not, whether it is giving you a model that is decent enough for you to accept it or not. But first comes the hypothesis and then comes the check. In machine learning, it's not like that. There's no hypothesis, there's no assumption. You don't assume any functional relationship. You say that I feel that these columns are related to each other and I want to understand if I can use age and work experience as independent factors to predict the value for Y, which is income. And I pass that data to the model, and the model has different ways. So different model have different ways of dealing with data, but then the model figures out what that functional form is. That form in itself is so complex, there's nothing that you can do with it. There's no value of actually looking at it, which means that getting an equation is only something that you can do out of statistical frameworks, not out of machine learning frameworks, which is why I'm saying that linear regression is a statistical framework, and 100 other reasons that came 100 years ago and all those, everything else. It's a much older algorithm that belongs to statistics. And also because of this fundamental difference with a linear regression model, like any other statistical model, it gives you a defined functional form. You explicitly say that this is what I think it is. You allow the model to check for it, get the best possible values, and you see if that works for you or not. As compared to any other, and what that does for you is it allows you to do prescriptive insights for your models as well. Because you know those elasticities, because you know that function and you have reasonable dependence on it, you assume that, okay, these errors are okay for me. Because you're reasonably dependent on that, now with these equations, you can make, generative insights. You can say that, okay, age slightly has a higher impact, makes sense maybe. Whatever that insight is, depending on whatever your set of features are. But in machine learning, you don't have this, which is why they're not very good prescriptive tools. They're very good predictive tools. Because you don't make an assumption there and you allow the model that, leeway to choose between the best possible functional relationships and then test it out on the data, they are better at it because they can do a lot more computation than a human head can. They are much better at doing what we do, and that's why they give you better predictions. Unfortunately, those relationships are too complicated for us to be able to generate any prescriptive insights out of that. You might be able to study a few trends, but generating prescriptive insights out of machine learning algorithms is difficult as compared to the algorithm that we are reading. Does this make sense?
Yeah, Rahul, but even machine learning algorithms will rely on statistical models, right? I mean, they'll have something in the background to work on. I mean, they'll rely on some concept.
They'll rely on different theories, but they're not
Okay.
statistical models.
Okay.
Machine learning model will not be trying to fit a line. The ML model, the models that are purely machine learning models. You can't call linear regression that you have in sklearn as a machine learning model, because it's just a different, so we are going to use OLS estimation. It is just going to use a different estimation. That's all the difference that there is. But it is very much a statistical framework. But none of the other pure machine learning models actually help you understand the functional form, which is why you see a lot of literature around machine learning being a black box modeling technique. You will have heard this term. If you're reading articles on these topics, you will have heard this at some point. The word black box being referred to machine learning algorithms because they don't give you an equation out directly. The equation they're using to make predictions, they're treated as black box models. They aren't as black box as some people make them out to be, but still to an extent, because a direct functional form is not something that you can gain out of a model. You can only gain very maybe accurate insights or accurate predictions out of those models. So that can be a challenge, but they do what they do very well.
Just a basic question on this equation, Rahul. Y is equal to B naught plus B1 age plus B2 work experience, right? Beta 2. So are we assuming that there is no correlation between age and work experience, or we don't care whether there is a correlation exists or not? We just are interested in.
We hope there isn't too much correlation between age and work experience for the estimation technique that we'll discuss. Right after this, we'll talk about OLS.
Okay.
And we start talking about certain assumptions that are there in OLS. But as for this equation does not make any assumption or claims on how age and work experience are related. But
Okay.
if we are going to estimate the values of beta of this equation using an OLS technique, then we'll need age and work experience not to be highly correlated.
Okay.
But the equation itself does not demand any such thing. Neither does it claim any such thing.
Okay. So
It just says that age and work experience are both related to my income, and in some way they are impacting it, and we feel that the way is linear.
okay.
Yes.
So Rahul, can we say that since there is no hypothesis concept in machine learning, so machine learning is like a predictive approach to solving the problem?
No, why would you call it a predictive approach? Statistical models are doing the same thing that a machine learning model is trying to do. Just that a statistical model is working with a defined formula and then seeing what can be the best, there's some parameters in those formulas. Like it has decided that I'm going to fit, let's say, a line. And then it is saying that my parameters for the line are my beta naughts, the coefficients and the intercept. That will allow you to change the slope and everything. Now find out such a line that gives me least minimum sum of squares of error. That's what you're doing there, right?
Yeah, in statistical model, correct. And in machine learning model?
In machine learning model, the way it tries to figure out the best, it will not decide that it has to be a line. It will say that that relationship could be anything. There are different ways. There are non-linear approaches. So every algorithm has its own way of training on the data, which is different from the way statistical frameworks will approach the same training. Statistical frameworks will first assume that this is the relationship, and then it'll try to choose best parameters for that relationship. Not in machine learning. In machine learning, you've got tree-based approaches, which have a completely different way of trying to work on the data. Then you've got algorithms like SVMs, you've got algorithms like k-means. All of them have different approaches. As we learn those algorithms, we'll read those approaches. But in none of those approaches, you'll have a defined mathematical formula that will be the model will be testing. None of that is going to happen. There'll be fixed theories. In some cases, like tree-based models, there's information theory. It says that it is going to use a tree-based approach to split the data, and it is trying to split the data in such a way that likes remain together and dislikes get separated out. Now that is the approach that a decision tree or any tree-based model is going to take to optimize its predictions. But it is not going to choose a mathematical formula to define a relationship and then check for best parameters in that formula. Statistical frameworks will always do that. It will choose a defined mathematical formula that explains the relationship, and that is how 90% of all theories have come out in maybe from 1500 to 1900. Econometric analysis and all of this is very old. That is how most of those things have happened. Several parameters have been studied as and when data got collected, and you tried to identify, you hypothesized functional relationships, and then you tried and estimated those.
So there is no concept of hypothesis in machine learning, right? It's only there in statistical models, like statistical approach.
In statistical models, the concept of hypothesis will exist because here we are going to do estimation. We said that there are infinite possibilities of lines out of which you can get the best fit line. Yes. So obviously no model will be able to compare all possibilities and get you the best value of error, right? It will have to use some approach to decide without actually having to check for all possibilities, because all possibilities are infinite. You can't check for them. Correct. So it will use some approach. So it will have to find some way to estimate the best possible value of beta naught. Now, because it's an estimation, it will be coupled by a hypothesis, which is trying to see if that estimation is not some random fluke. That estimation is actually what it is.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So Rahul, here estimation it will be considered as a correlation.
No, estimation will be considered as correlation. Why?
No, I'm just saying.
Estimation, you are going to try and estimate your independent attribute. Coefficient of the independent attribute, the betas. You will try and estimate the betas in the equation. That is what I'm saying. When I say estimation, that is what I mean. So in this equation where I'm writing beta naught plus beta 1 age plus beta 2 work experience, I want to find out what these betas are. The moment I know that, I know my functional relationship. I know exactly how to calculate income. This is one example of that equation. So the estimation is finding out this beta naught is equal to 1000, beta 1 is equal to 60, beta 2 is equal to 45. This process is what we call estimation of the coefficients. Now, because there can be infinite possibilities of these numbers, which will make it infinite combinations of lines, because there are infinite possibilities out of which you got to find out the one that has minimum sum squares of error, it cannot actually be done, which means that you need some sort of mechanism that allows you to estimate that, okay, this is the best that you're going to get. Anyway, beyond this is poorer. So the maxima is somewhere that you know where it is. So you figure out a way of doing that. One of those ways is OLS, ordinary least squares.
Rahul, one question. We don't have hypothesis testing for machine learning models. Is that my
No.
understanding is correct?
Yeah, correct. Because there are no assumptions there.
Yes,
Ah.
yes. Okay. Since
So
we
there's no
estimate here, we
hypothesis
do hypothesis testing to
Correct.
decide whether our estimates is going to be a best one or not.
Correct. In
Okay.
machine learning models, because there is no functional form, you don't have
Yes.
to estimate anything.
Okay,
The
we could
model
not
does
see
give you-
equation kind of thing over there. The model automatically predicts. I mean, we could not really see that.
Yes.
Is it? Yeah.
This is how it works. So this is a ML model. You will pass age.
It's like algorithm. It
experience.
processes one algorithm
Yes.
and it gives.
It will give you income.
Yes.
That's all it does. ML model this is all you can do with this machine learning model. You can pass values of age and work experience to it, and the model will give you a value for income. It will not tell you how it did it. What
Yes.
is the approach that it to, or what formula it used, or whatever it did, it's not going to tell you that. Whereas in a statistical model, what you do is you have a stats model. It gives you can do the same thing. You can pass age, work experience to it, and it is going to give you income. This exercise is what? This exercise is the predictive exercise, right? Predictions. Both of them are doing it. The difference is it also gives you coefficients, which involves estimation, which requires hypothesis. Because you're doing estimations, when we studied inferential statistics, we said that whenever you're doing any kind of estimation, you've got to couple that with hypothesis tests to ensure that your estimates are not random, flukes or random,
So basically both models are best attempt at trying to identify the truth or fact on the ground.
Both of the models will allow you to use the independent variables to get a dependent value or predict a value for the dependent variable.
Yes.
But the machine learning model will not tell you how it does it. A statistical model works with much simpler functional forms, and it tells you how it does it. By giving you the coefficients and by estimating those coefficients, it tells you how it does its calculation. As compared to ML model, it does not tell you anything. It just gives you a value for the income. It does not tell you how it got to that value.
So because it uses a lot of theory, as you just mentioned, a lot of parallel competing theorems and chooses best out of it.
Lots of computation happens.
Yeah.
With
just the sheer power of machine.
Yes, when we read tree-based models, I'll give you a sense of how much computation actually happens. It's a little overwhelming. The amount of calculations that these models do in the backend is overwhelming. Now, because of that extent of maths that is involved inside this, we are able to leverage these models to get very powerful, predictions. But statistical models are a little simplistic in the way they are created, and it is like how historically analysis has happened. Is that you first make a hypothesis, okay, I think it's happening like this, then you do experiments to prove whether it is correct or not. That is the approach that statistical frameworks take. They first hypothesize that this is how the relationship goes, that's my prediction. Now try and prove it. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Rahul, just out of interest, we just relied on the estimation of using coefficient linear regression models, right? Today. So what else machine learning depends on? We said multiple theories or multiple competing.
There's an information theory for tree-based models.
Okay.
Support vectors, support vector machines work on the concept of support vectors and hyperplanes. So they
Okay.
have a different way of dealing with this kind of analysis. Bayesian family of algorithms have a different, Bayesian approach of dealing with problems. So different kinds of models have different ways in which they deal with these kinds of problems.
So, I mean, as looking at the career in data science or machine learning, we will be directly dealing with these. I mean, do we
Yeah.
need to know or learn and then ultimately work on
No,
these?
we'll not learn that theory and all.
Okay.
A lot of that theory is so complicated that nobody really knows it. People just continually use it.
Okay.
It gives you so good prediction. The best model in the market right now is an XGBoost model. Categorically, for regression or classification problems, the best model right now in the market is a XGBoost. This XGBoost model was developed by two Chinese people who are working in a company. They don't even come from academia, which means that there are no books in which you will ever find anything on XGBoost. Very few articles on the internet you will find on XGBoost. You'll have to pay a decent amount of money to get the actual research paper where XGBoost was explained. And hardly 5% of the people who actually use it right now, and 90% of all Kaggle leaderboards are XGBoost models. And so many other places, XGBoost, you find applications everywhere. It's very versatile. But not 5% of the people who actually use it know the maths behind an XGBoost algorithm. The maths is very complicated and works very well, and people just trust it. The maths is really nobody is concerned. Nobody is really concerned about how it's doing the computation. You have a decent sense of what's the principles upon which a certain different algorithms work. Because you know those principles, you know how to leverage those algorithms intelligently, and in what circumstances how to use them in different ways so as to get optimal results. So you know all that, but you don't really know how that maths is so easily worked out. And we are happy to not care about it and just use them effectively. We'll study after the 2 statistical algorithms, we'll study at least 6 machine learning algorithms.
Okay.
You'll come across 3-4 theories. You'll not know too much about the theory, but you'll be able to use those algorithms very powerfully. We'll understand parts of the theory that are relevant, obviously, but we skip most of the details. Okay. Now let's actually start the conversation on OLS, which is ordinary least squares. That's the estimation approach that we'll be taking, which minimizes the sum of squares of error to find out the optimal values for beta. That's the approach that we are taking. Now, this OLS approach, like all other statistical models, will come with a set of assumptions. All statistical models have a large set of, generally a heavy set of assumptions that they've got to take care of. We'll start off with the assumptions for OLS now. So the first 3 assumptions are assumptions around, not first, 3 actually, yeah, 3 assumptions around the error term. This is how the assumptions go. The error term eta I should be normally distributed. It's actually not a should. The error term does not necessarily have to be normally distributed. The error term, you realize, is a distribution itself, because if you got 500 observations for x1 and x2 and 500 observations for y1, then for every combination of x1 and x2 that yields a y, you will get an error. So you get 500 values for error as well. So that is in itself a distribution. Now that error distribution shouldn't necessarily be normal, but we do a lot of hypothesis tests. Like we discussed, because there is an estimation step that's involved inside the linear regression model that we are hoping to build. We are going to do hypothesis tests for those estimates, and those hypothesis tests require the error term to be normal. So the normality of the error term or the residual term is important for us to be able to run a lot of hypothesis tests that we are going to run later on. If the error term is not normal, then there's a problem with the hypothesis tests, not a problem with the OLS estimation model, which is why I'm saying again and again that this is not a necessary for OLS. It is important for hypothesis testing, but there are two important assumptions for OLS, and those assumptions are: your error term should have a mean of 0, and your error term should have constant variance. Now the condition of constant variance is also referred to as homoscedasticity. The opposite of this is heteroscedasticity. So the error term needs to follow these two criteria. The error term should have a mean in and around 0, and the error term should have constant variance, whatever that variance is. For hypothesis tests to work, your error term should basically follow a normal with mean 0 and variance sigma square, but this sigma square should be constant. It's not like the error in the first 100 observations is the average error in the first 100 observations is around 100, and then in the next 100 becomes 300, and then it keeps changing significantly. So your variance of the error term should remain constant throughout. So the two assumptions that we made is that the mean of the error term should be around 0, and the variance of the error term should be a constant. Ideally, it should be normally distributed with mean 0 and variance sigma square. Now, this is an important assumption for OLS. Now, mostly this is something that you identify by looking at something called a residual versus fitted curve.
Rahul, sorry to interrupt. What is it? Homoscedasticity, heteroscedasticity?
Homoscedasticity simply means constant variance, that the variance is constant throughout the distribution. Heteroscedasticity means that your variance is not constant. Your variance is changing as you move in the distribution. Now, both of these ideas are checked by looking at a curve called the residual versus fitted. Now, residual versus fitted curve. So let's say there are 200 observations. So along this x-axis, you have got the fitted values and the residuals for all the values that you have gotten. Now, let's say these are the fitted values. These are residuals. Do you think this satisfies the conditions for OLS?
No, mean should be 0, right?
Yes, Yes. So the mean zero condition is getting violated here. And this quite clearly looks like it has a mean in and around 1. So the mean zero condition gets violated. Now do you think this satisfies the conditions?
Yes, but it should follow normal distribution, right?
Why do you think this not this is not normal?
That peak.
This is a scatter plot.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
है ना? These are fitted values. These are the values that were fitted, and across those values, these are the residuals that you got. So this is simply a scatter plot.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
So Rahul, what is the fitted actually? Can you repeat?
Fitted is the value that you fit for y, your y pred.
So y hat you are saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Does this look like it fits the assumptions?
Yes. Looking mean will be 0 and variance is more or less.
Yes. So mean looks to be 0. Variance, what can you say about variance? Does this seem to be constant variance?
Yeah, more or less it seems.
Okay. How do you decide that?
The distance of individual points from the mean.
Correct. So since we've realized that this is my mean, I can see that the average spread of the data has remained almost constant, right? It's not fluctuated too much.
So residual is y hat minus y, right?
Huh. Residual is basically y minus yi minus yi hat. So what is the actual minus what was predicted? So the predicted was slightly higher than the actual or lower than the actual, but the net distance mostly for most of the points seems to be in a constant range like this, right? So it seems like it's a constant variance distribution. So here it seems like both the conditions are met. The normality assumption we cannot verify here just by looking at a scatter plot. For normality, we'll have to do something that allows us to get a sense of frequency distribution. Scatter plots cannot help, right? Either we do something which, what we'll do is we'll use something called a QQ plot. A QQ plot allows us to check for normality very easily. But here, what we can see is that this looks constant variance. What if, I get something slightly different? It looks like this. What do you say about this?
Variance is not uniform. or
Along the mean, it is all same, right? The variance, the variance is matching, right? In the second case.
The mean again seems to be this line.
Yeah.
How do you understand variance? Variance is measured by this quantity. Average spread from your mean.
There is.
It seems like the
heteroscedastic.
variance is increasing, right? As you go towards higher values for the fitted column, your error is also increasing. For higher predictions, you're making higher error, right? So this is an example of heteroskedasticity.